Divine greetings and grand night, since it's night where I am. It is so great seeing all of you again. Thank you for joining me in this endeavor of mine. In all honesty, I need to I need to talk. I need to discuss and I need to explain what exactly is lust to me and how exactly it affected my life and where it all began, I suppose, and where it ended. Excuse me, getting straight into all of the juicy details. You have to start at the beginning as usual because there's always a beginning to an ending. And for me, the beginning of being, I guess, introduced to lust was being raised by. Oops, sorry, homeboy popping out for some reason. We just discussed that. Anyways, why is homeboy doing that now? Hmm. Anyways, to begin, obviously, I have to start at the beginning. And for me, the beginning was being raised around very lustful and adulterous women, or whether that be just in general, family, friends, uh, just random people that I could sense some kind of low demonic entity on, and just understanding what it really is that uh, being being hidden from us. Like the knowledge isn't there's a lack of knowledge of what it actually looks like to lust and be in lust and be kind of hijacked by lust. So, with me having the experience that I have with said topic, I would like to start off by saying that I personally, and I have confirmed with God and the universe and everybody else, it was just very impossible for me to be lustful because I always loved. And for me, the definition of lust is a lack of love, where there is no hatred, but there isn't love. It's kind of like the in between that a lot of us get stuck on in, I guess, our later years, sometimes our earlier years, for you know what I mean, the ones that's for. But we get stuck on it, not understanding what it actually is and how bad and the I guess the problem in and of itself. And so being somebody who looks at the problem as there always being a solution, I'm only saying what I'm saying to obviously educate and just teach people how to see the signs and recognize what it is when there's a lack of love, but it isn't hatred, and it's kind of in the in between. It's where you find lust. And lust isn't just sexual desire. It's the desire for something outside of yourself that you feel like you don't have. That could be money. That could be a house. That could be a person without sexual needs. With sexual needs. It could be food. You know what I mean? Like you can lust after anything because you feel a lack of love inside that makes you chase after something outside of yourself. And that for me was really where I could assimilate the definition for myself and educate people on what it looks like and what it is. Excuse me. So, being raised by very adulterous, lustful individuals around very adulterous and lustful individuals, I always found myself in situations that didn't really serve me throughout my preteens, teens, and a little bit of my like uh, adolescence, and more so leaning out of my adulthood. And so I was definitely able to identify the causes in my family, first of all, because that's where all of it begins, where you start. And you obviously have to start with your family. I was also able to identify it within the friends and the friend group that I had surrounded myself in, and just the people that I had to involve myself with to learn the lesson that lust isn't gonna get you anywhere. Me not being a lustful individual, I loved. So with loving, you can't really love lust because lust is a lack of love, but a lack of hatred. And me being the person that I am, I really only found hatred within myself. Couldn't really hate outside of that because I don't know, God just didn't allow it. There always had to be the solution within me. So I always had to look within, which is why I understand that for a lot of the portion of it, it wasn't the people's fault that they fell into lust. It was the people. It wasn't the people before them that fell into lust. This has been going on for generations, and it's been going on for a very long time. So it wasn't their fault. It was their fault for continuing after recognizing that the path that they were on didn't serve them at all and not doing anything about it. That's where they made the mistake. And that's where I came in. So, for lack of better words, lust. It's a bad thing. But you can't really identify it until you know what it looks like. So, always being surrounded by it, you I kind of got the idea at least that it wasn't how we portrayed it. It wasn't just sexual desire, no. It was the lust for power, the lust for just things that weren't really, you know what I mean, not really attainable without love. So that's where the entity, because it is an entity, sins are entities, the entity of lust came in. And being surrounded by thereof, I really got to understand and experience where lust actually leads you. And it leads you to a barren wasteland of hellfire and just like, you know what I mean? Well, first off, the sexual part, obviously, if you're just throwing your body out there to whoever and whatever, sexually transmitted demons are very, very, uh, it's the outcome of being irresponsible with yourself. But that, like I said, lust isn't just sexual. Lust is it's a desire for something that you don't already have within yourself, that you feel like you can obtain without using somebody for, excuse me, for their what you're looking for within that person. And I can say none of you will be excused. So I feel like uh, every single part of my family, all sides, every single side that combined it up to make me, were very lustful, very, very lustful for their own things, obviously, but very lustful, very adulterous, very just, no, I mean, sin runs in the family, I will say, which is why I came here to talk about it. But I really had to start with lust because for me, and the realization that lust is such a silent killer, it's really like the story of David and Goliath, where David picked up the stone and threw it at Goliath. For me, Goliath is lust. because it is such a big problem, but it is so undermined by everybody else because everybody has a lack of self love and they feel like they need a relationship to get their needs met or whatever they may be. Whatever they may be. Obviously, I don't discriminate and I don't just categorize lust as just lust, sexual lust. Obviously, it's there and it's very potent in that department, but that doesn't mean that it's just that, which is why it is such a silent killer. Now, where I'm going with all of this is most, if not all, of my generation, the generation before, and the generation, you know what I mean? Generation to generation, we're all lust babies. We weren't created from love, we were created from lust. So, obviously, we're going to run into the same problems as a generation. And it's our decision to either keep going with it or stop thereof. And surprisingly, as I've learned and found out, a lot of people in my generation don't want to stop it. They want to continue it. And they want to just, you know what I'm saying? Have a sexually transmitted demon before 25. And that's cool. You know what I mean? If that's really the way you want to roll. But for the people that don't, you really start to understand that most, if not all, of these relationships that these people are in and out of are just lustful based. Whether that be lust for power, lust for money, lust for sex, lust for illicit substances, lust for alcohol, lust for whatever they feel like they can get provided for by somebody else, men or women. And growing up loving love, being a romantic at heart, I always looked for love. Obviously in the wrong places because of, well, the second part, which because I had to, I had to re-record this because some things just don't need to be said because they speak for themselves. Which brings me to my next point. All was some, if not all, of these relationships, these high school sweethearts, all this other stuff, it's less space. It really is once you really get down to it. Unless it's an entity, it's an entity attachment. It doesn't always have to be an entity attachment. It becomes an entity attachment when you frequent it. When you frequent sin, it becomes an entity attachment. When it becomes an entity attachment, you are possessed, you are taking over. So you don't have control over your desires anymore, which is what I completely understand. That these people were just hijacked. They didn't just want to go from person to person to person to person, just doing what they did. They were completely hijacked by their desires, and they had no self control over what kind of path that they were taking, or nor did they know where it would lead them because lust has been so publicized and so sought after because of the portrayal of how people portrayed it. Now, if you don't love yourself, don't get into a relationship. If you don't love yourself, don't hook up with somebody. If you don't love yourself, don't go looking for any of that stuff outside of yourself because you're always going to lead back to yourself in whatever kind of manner the lust leaves you in. And trust me, I've seen lust leave people in damnation, the holy divine fire, the pits of hell, because that's where it comes from. Desire of something that you don't already have within yourself results in unhappy homes, lust babies, just a whole slew of things that can be avoided if you just did the work within yourself to not have to look for external validation outside of yourself. Which leads nowhere back to guess what? Yourself. Because if you don't do the work and you continue to feel like you can just bypass all of the hard work that other people do, you run into a person like me, somebody who does the work, and you'll be shown every single day just how much work you lack, just how much work you're not doing, just how much you're not paying attention to yourself, and you're not taking care of yourself, and you're not doing the right things for yourself. God will put people like me to remind you just where you lack so that you can do better, obviously. But for a lot of these people, especially the lustful individuals, they start lusting for that. You know what I mean? They start lusting for the peace. They start lusting for the work, the healing, the self, the self love. They start lusting for that. But why would you? I'm not gonna get into it. Don't lust. Don't do it. Love oneself so that you can love another. Because if you don't love yourself, how do you expect to love another? Can't love somebody just sticking whatever you want in them or putting on whatever you want to put on somebody. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's not love. And you just look so foolish. Like, everybody's laughing at you in the spiritual realm because you're just inviting demonic entities and you're leaving holes in your aura for you to be pierced by these lustful spirits. And you're just going to be hijacked, man. You're just going to be taken over. You're going to become a cheater. You're going to become a liar. You're going to become very confused in your gender because you're mixing your energy with a bunch of other confused people. Lust leads you nowhere but damnation. But fire all over your body, man. And it's not the good kind of fire. It's not the passion, no. It's hell. Lust leads you to hell. So stop desiring things, people, places outside of yourself, man. Learn how to manifest. Learn how to, like, write yourself a love letter. You know what I mean? Have standards and values and don't just look for sexual experiences everywhere you go. That shit's dead, bro. This new earth that we're in, those kind of timelines won't even survive. You'll just be exposed out in the open. I think I'll leave it at that and then let past Xzyler explain his side of things and a more cohesive understanding of how I got to the conclusion of all of this. So I'll leave it to that very handsome, talented, intellectual, and loving gentleman to explain to you all exactly how we got here, exactly how you can get here too. Because self love isn't just, you know what I mean, isn't just the work. Self love is the practice of the work. It's the consistency in showing up for yourself every single day when you felt like nobody else would. Because a lot of the times, lustful individuals come from broken homes. Lustful individuals come from people with mother wounds, from father wounds. And it's very trauma based. Obviously, there's a lot to do with the DNA and generational trauma and everything like that. But at the end of the day, lust in itself comes from a lack of love. And it's not a lack of love outside of yourself, it's a lack of self love. It's a lack of loving those deep, dark parts of yourself that you feel like nobody could ever even fathom or love themselves. Which is why you have to love those sides of yourself. Because who else is going to do it if you don't? It's not going to be the partner that you find when you don't love yourself, I'm afraid. And people will learn. I'm sure they have learned that that shit will lead you nowhere. You'll lose everything. You'll lose everything chasing after lust. And I'll leave it there and let the past handsome gentleman explain his side of the things. I love you. I really do. I love those. I love those parts of yourself that you can yet, because everybody will be put on to self love, the best kind of love. Hatred, because I couldn't hate anybody outside of myself. So, in those feelings of self hatred, you look for that release. And for me, a lot of the time that release came from, what I'm saying, stroking the chicken, man. What, like, we're adults here. We can be honest. We can be truthful. Not everything needs to be said, but you can explain it in a way where you don't have to compromise your well being. I was a little addict for that. You know what I mean? That was my stuff. It really, I don't know when it really like started. Obviously, well, I do. I was familiar with the word sex, and I was scrolling through the TV, and I saw Sex in the City, and I was like, huh. So I clicked it, and obviously there was no ideas that I know of because I'm like 8 or some shit. I don't know, but there was a lack. There was a lack of what I had thought it was. So I went looking for what it was, and I found it, and just for the sake of storytelling and for the sake of explaining, my first video was, girl on girl. I do remember that. What's really morbid about it, and I'll tell you because I don't really have any connection to any of that anymore, and I'm proud of who I became based off of all of that. It was two priests. it was two it was two like nuns. It was two nuns, two priests. Which is crazy to think about, crazy to talk about, but we're all adults. And if you're not an adult, you can understand that. Don't do that shit. Find self love. Don't go looking for it outside of yourself because you're only going to run into the problem itself. Lust. Understanding myself and where I was, I understood that I really didn't lust at all. It was more so love. I was just very loving, very giving. And the only real times that I felt like I wasn't that was when that self hatred just ate me, ate me alive. But now understanding it as a full grown adult, I was just extrasensory psychic and picking up on the feelings and thoughts and emotions of people around me. It wasn't really me at all. Now, with all that being said, it didn't just stop at the two nuns. In fact, it didn't just stop at 1,000 videos. In fact, it didn't just stop at 10,000 videos. No. I would watch the entire catalog, catalog, the entirety of every single hentai I could find. That was that, you know, obviously, once you grow up, you understand that what you like within other people and I guess the fetishes and all that stuff, it's really just trauma based. It's bloodline. It's like generational DNA based. It's trauma generate. It's trauma. Your bloodline. Excuse me. And then the traits in your parents. Because once you grow up, you understand that what you're looking for in a partner is basically like somebody that replicates the good parts of your paternal figures in a genuine way. So understanding that, I was a little, you know what I mean, ricky, and I got involved in a lot, and I mean a lot. It got me for a minute. I'm not gonna lie. I was in a little chokehold, getting a little noogie, but I never accepted the spirit of lust. I never went looking for something like that outside of myself because I always knew that I could do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really need all that, which I'm very thankful for, obviously. Struggling with self love and everything like that. I'm very thankful that I had that outlet at the time that was very unhealthy for me. But it did the trick. I got the release of the self hatred and into a more, I guess, more uh, lighter, very lighter emotions, moods, and thoughts and feelings and everything like that. But it was a problem, man. Like it would just be like, you know what I mean, session after session, and I understood that I was doing it a lot. I was surrounded with people that are doing it too, and that's not to well. I can't really say since I did indulge in it quite a bit, but I feel like our the generation growing up and our kids don't really have to, since we're here to explain to them like, hey, love yourself, and you will never end up in situations like these. Stay away from the things that you know you should stay away from. And obviously, as a kid, when you're told to stay away, you're like, man, what am I staying away from? And then you go check in, and you're like, whoa. Obviously, it's just dopamine. At the end of the day, it's just dopamine. A more so sexually tailored dopamine, but it's just dopamine. Just succubus and incubus, just doing what they do, energy harvesting off of each other and the people that are watching the videos. That's all it is. But it came to a certain point where I was just well. The thing is too, I didn't really have lustful eyes. Like I wasn't really, you know what I mean. Being surrounded by a bunch of men that would take the advantage and vulnerability of women and kind of, you know what I mean, and good-looking women and whatever they're wearing and taking the advantage to look at them in lustful, lewd ways. I was never really the type to really do that. You know what I mean? I was straight back. Obviously, as a man, you understand that aim assist does exist, and sometimes you're just gonna find yourself looking at things that you really shouldn't. Because you know you look there and whoa, look back. But for the most part, as a kid, straight back. The only time I would ever feel comfortable even looking at somebody in that way was when I was in those secretive, vulnerable moments of mine, whether that be obviously hentai or the P word. Now, understanding all of that, you know, as a kid, I was quite popular with the opposite sex, obviously. So I had the chance to get to know and understand them on a very, very deep level. So I was never able to really look at my peers as just something that I could take advantage of in any kind of way. Because obviously, my heart's based in love. So I had nothing but love for my peers and everybody around me. That was really the only time that I could say that I was really like, you know what I mean? Like, never really looked at somebody and thought, oh, hey, like, you know, that's just so dead to me because I'm not lustful. There was a point in my life where I was so self hatred consumed that I would I would self soothe myself, but it didn't really manifest physically at all. But I'd never really, you know what I mean. The most I had really done with female was hug, besides receive things and all that other stuff. So I feel like it was the year after eighth grade. Oh no. Mm, well, yeah, the year after eighth grade, and then the years leading towards that, I was, you know what I mean. I was getting into a little bit of stuff and things. Getting into a little bit of stuff and things. Nothing physical. It was always just talk. Always just talk. But understanding, I've said understanding so many times. Being able to experience all of that, there came a point where he introduced me to astrology and stuff like that. That was really the first, I guess, kind of encounter that I had had. I felt like God took us away from each other at the right time so that we didn't continue with the path that we were going towards. But understanding that and being the 17-year-old hard worker that I was, you got a lot of stares from, because this is when I was 17, obviously. You got a lot of stares from the people at work that are obviously grown women. I'm 17. There's a grown woman looking at me like, you know what I mean? I guess it's just average. It shouldn't be, honestly. I would like to bring more awareness to the fact that stuff like that happens in the workplace because men idolize that kind of stuff. And for me, that's gross. For me, that's really gross. Like, really, really gross. So that's where I can really say that I really had experienced lust, I suppose, was in the workplace. Because that was when I was kind of getting more in tune with my extrasensory abilities. And you could just feel like the stares, the like, you know what I mean? Just the obvious planning of certain events. But I was talking to somebody, so I didn't really pursue any of that, thankfully. But it was around the time when we had stopped talking that things got a little more intense, I suppose. And I was put into situations where I had to be glued on my best behavior. and having a lack of a father figure or a lack of a knowing and understanding, a knowing of God. I had met a few women, and every time it came down to it, I didn't do the thing for a very long time. And I felt like I was doing something wrong with being surrounded by a bunch of people that are doing the thing. I felt like I was doing something wrong. Like I felt like I was missing out or whatever like that. You know what I mean? And understanding now that I was surrounded by just a bunch of insecure men that, I mean, if you have to cheat, you're just insecure. If you're just having sex with multiple women, you're insecure. If you're having sex with multiple men, you're insecure. There's a lack of security in the lustful intentions of the people around me. Me not understanding that, I was like, you know what I mean? I kind of want to experience whatever's going on too. So I got on a little Tinder, went on a few Tinder dates. Yeah, no, that was it, pretty much. Obviously, it got to that point since it's Tinder. That's like literally lust in itself. It got to that point where, we were getting down to doing the deed. I just could never force myself to really force myself onto somebody. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of weird to me. Yeah. Excuse me. So, them not getting what they want, they completely discarded me. And it wasn't until I had met a very shady individual and I was doing some shady things with that individual that I met another pretty lady. And when meeting that pretty lady, we were talking a little bit. I had gone out of my way to reach out to her, obviously. But understanding it now, I can definitely see where I was plotted on, which is the theme for this story time, unfortunately. So, me being with this very shady individual and doing very shady things with this individual, I met other. I met a girl. She was pretty cool. I liked her a lot. And I kept meeting this girl. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna message her. So I messaged her. Met up, had a little cutesy date. Things were cool. I invited her to my house. And then things got a little, you know what I mean, spicy. I mean, I understood what they were talking about now, but I had lost the essence of the first time to an experience that didn't amount to a release, didn't amount to anything like that. You know what I mean? Didn't it just you know just kids rushing it, understanding that. It was around the time. It was around that time that I had been in a very dark place, and my mom came to bring me to where I am now. Well, not where I am now, but like the city, not the city, where I am now. Brought me to where I am now, and it continued, but it magnified. Now understanding it, it wasn't me that was really. on that type of timing. It was the people around me. You know what I mean? It got to a point where it was just same old, same old. Because throughout all that time that I was talking to these women over on the internet and in my hometown, I was still doing the stroking of the chicken and watching the watching the P word and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it just kind of magnified once I got more to a place where I was just doing it for me. There's always been a thing with me and dating apps for some reason, and it has dated all the way back to you, Bo. Has dated all the way back to you, Bo. So I was on them dating apps and stuff and things and talking to all different types of women and everything like that. And it was like an everyday thing. But there came to a point where I was like, no, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna actually like better myself and look for that what I had been looking for because at some point I had made it up in my head that what I was doing was a form of self love. And although it may have been, it wasn't the most healthy form of self love. So I had to really decide like whether or not I was going to continue doing that or not. And it was around that time that I was going to school and everything like that. I went on a trip back to my hometown and I had decided after an acid trip, I was presented with Jesus, the heart. I was presented with um, my first official girlfriend. We had met. Well, the thing is, after after the relationship, understanding that we had met before. We just, I could obviously understand that she saw me and I didn't see her. So me not knowing who she was at all, and her knowing exactly who I was, things kind of got blurred in between the lines, and I kind of just took it for what it was. Felt like I found the love of my life, found my twin flame, and so we talked and all the different things and all that. And it got to the point where it was time to finally meet her on a one-on-one sense. Me being the gentleman I am. On the morning thereof, went to pick up some flowers, some roses, and gave it to her. And then things kind of escalated. And that's where I could really say that I had experienced experienced lust. But it wasn't for her. It wasn't from her. It wasn't from me. It was from the projections of the people around us that really resulted in how things ended up. It was great. It was really nice. Besides all the other, everything. Besides all the people probably know by now because I don't know. People don't know how to keep their mouth shut. So things happened. We were happy. I was happy. I could tell she was happy. But it was like everything that I thought I wanted. And then she left, and she came back the next weekend because it was her birthday. You know, your boy had to pull up to, what is it? The bear making place. That's what I'll call it. The bear making place. I'm really good at gift giving. I really noticed that throughout the. Uh, I've only had one relationship. The rest of them wouldn't even consider it a relationship. So I'll give it that. But I was a good gift giver. I'm very experienced in my love languages, so I know how to love and doing all of that. Got her a little bear. Spent another weekend together. But that was no, it wasn't. And then the relationship continued. Obviously, we dealt with our own problems and everything, and she wanted to end the relationship. That was like, no, let me come see you. And I went to go see her, and then things ended very abruptly, and I felt like my heart was ripped out of my chest. That was like my first relationship, and where I could really say that lust impacted me and what I had going on very negatively. Do your research, ask questions, be more aware of who you are spending your time on and with. Don't be lustful. Excuse me. Don't ruin great things being lustful. If he is the one, if she is the one, wait until marriage. Wait until marriage. Be loyal. You have to be loyal to yourself to be loyal to another. You can't be loyal to yourself lying about everything. You're just gonna wind up lying to the person that you love and then pushing them away. Me being the empath that I am, I felt I felt like we could do something with all of that had happened because it was a lot for me, obviously, because this is the first time I ever experienced something like that. Not knowing that the people in my own town probably been experiencing that the whole time. I mean, that was my first experience where I had actually felt like I had something. Besides, the one with the pretty lady. But I was always the kid to get turned down. Always the kid to get rejected by multiple sources. And I understand now that it was really protection. Protection of my heart, protection of my purity, protection of my innocence. Because it wasn't until I had really gotten over the heartbreak, which took a while. I'm not gonna lie, it took a while. That I really had, I guess, understood where we had went wrong and where we could have done better. But things happen for a reason. So I was just thankful that things turned out the way they did. Obviously, I ended up getting ghosted, even though I was gang stalked, which was kind of counterintuitive on their part. But mm, after that relationship, things just got really, really hectic over in my hometown for me. because people show their true colors once you have something that they feel like they should have. So I was gonna lie, evil eye. The whole reason our relationship even ended was evil eye. So I definitely understand that. That was my first love, and I loved hard. I did. I was as respectful as I could. Said happy birthday. You know what I mean? Just never got any type of response that wasn't anonymous. And that's where people really lost me, honestly. Like I knew it was them calling. I knew it was them trying to message me, but it's just once you're not showing up as yourself, you kind of just lose me. So it took a while. I'm not gonna lie, but I have finally gotten over it, and I moved on because I realized that I wasn't being told the truth at all, and it wasn't the people around me's fault. It wasn't the woman. It wasn't the men. It was simply my family's fault because that's where it all started. It all started with lust, and it all ended with lust. Now, here's a more darker side. Because after that, I felt like I just, obviously understanding it now, it was all spell work. It was all, it was all just some kind of game to them. But I couldn't look at any other woman the way I had been able to before because it felt wrong. It felt very wrong. So I wasn't watching the incubus and the succubus no more. I wasn't doing the big P word or the hentai or any of that. It had gotten very dark, and I mean very dark. Understanding it now is just generational trauma of hate for uh, same sex, hate for same sex, which I had to overcome. But it had manifested in me just not being able to look at women the same, in the sense that I didn't really want to, you know what I mean? Because beforehand, even on my Instagram, like I was like one of those uh, aesthetic posting guys, where I would just post like lewd images of hentai or like girls or guns or stuff like that, stuff that I found cool. I couldn't look at it the same no more, and it resulted in me experimenting because I had been had been cursed, had been cursed with um, which is why I don't recommend hookups or I don't recommend casual sex or I don't recommend any of that because you have no clue the type of energy these women carry within them. You have no clue the type of energy these men carry within them. If you don't get to know them and you do something like that where it's an energy exchange, you could get some energy that doesn't resonate with you. So you get confused. And the energy that I had gotten was confusion because prior I was very, 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 very in tune with my sexuality and what I loved. I loved women. I love women. Not like that, obviously. I want to, you know what I mean. I was definitely the type to tell my girl she could wear whatever she wanted as long as she was respecting herself. You know what I mean? Like I was very confident in keeping what was mine, and I was very understanding and women wanting to express themselves in the way that they dress, and I was very supportive of it. Obviously, even if other men were insecure about it, I was just all for women. I've always been all for women. Even the thoughts and the feelings and everything that led up to me having my first relationship, it was because I was all for women. Now, after my sexual encounter, there had been a confusion and loss of um understanding for myself for why I was doing what I was doing with the P word. And I got it confused, man. I got it confused, understanding that it's generational and um that I only felt like that because of the energy that I had interacted with was confused as well. I wasn't confused, obviously. I'm sure, very sure of myself. But for that era of my life, I was very confused. So I did go into the dark side of, I guess, understanding why I had so much, um, why I had so much hatred for, I guess, same-sex relationships, same-sex anything. I say hatred because it's generational, and the only reason I understood that is because I observed the people in my family around me and how they would react to those types of things. So I understood that my love for myself couldn't exist with the hatred for other people that are confused about themselves. So, me being me, I had to dive into the depths of the darkness that is that generational trauma of hatred towards same sex relationships, hatred towards same sex, whatever it may be. So I did, you know what I mean? I did some experimenting. By that, I just mean like putting myself out there on like same sex dating apps and stuff like that. But I understood that I had no, and I mean, ugh, even thinking about it, I had no attraction to masculinity at all. Ugh, I'm masculine enough. I don't need that. That shit is so disgusting to me. For me. Obviously not for other people. I'm so supportive and so there for whatever people got going on. But for me personally, going through it, I had to I had to find out where I could meet myself in the middle and the understanding of what I was feeling. Because I was feeling a lot. And obviously I understand now that those thoughts and those feelings and those emotions were mine. They were never mine. Excuse me. But putting up with it, I had to go through it. So obviously, I had put myself out there on things like that, and I came to the conclusion that it wasn't it wasn't women and it wasn't men. It definitely wasn't masculinity. I am so disinterested and d- unattracted to masculinity, but I am so in love with femininity, so in love with femininity that when I felt like I couldn't look for it in when I felt like I couldn't look for it in the same places that I found it before. I had experimented and found it in new ways, I suppose. And that was only due to trauma, obviously, generational trauma. But I had gotten really, really interested in um, understanding why it is people were confused, I suppose. So, me not liking men at all, me not really swinging that way at all. I had to understand where these thoughts and feelings and emotions were coming from. Obviously, not me, people around me, confused people around me, confused friends, confused family members, you name it. Everybody was just confused because they were all lustful. And lust leads you into things that you wouldn't really imagine yourself being into. So, me understanding that I wasn't allowing myself to engage with women like I was before, and I wasn't watching the P word with any woman involved. I had turned to a very dark, dark alternative. I had turned to trans. I had turned to trans because I found that that's where the femininity within a femininity that was acceptable to me. Obviously, it was spell work. Obviously, I was getting work done on me. I've been getting work done on me ever since I was a kid. But understanding it now, I was only in that position because of the people around me and how confused they were. So I was into discovering discovering what exactly I guess trans people had for themselves. Trans women, obviously, nothing to do with trans men. Trans women. I'm attracted to femininity and femininity only. I've named this multiple occasions, so I don't have any problem admitting it. I mean, I've been through it. You don't just get to this point just fucking off. You got to do the work. I did the work. I knew that I could not go through my life without a wife. I could not go through my life without having children. And having children with a trans woman is just impossible. So I knew that that wasn't where I was going to end things. I just had to be there for that certain part of my life to overcome and become better within myself. So I will say that I had uh, shifted all of that energy from P word with boy girl, girl girl to man, I'm trans. I'm not scared or afraid to admit that, nigga. What the fuck? That shit don't matter to me now. I overcame it. But at the time, I was on and off of trans dating sites. I won't even name them because it's not important. I don't recommend unless you're going through something of similar. But I really don't recommend. If you're a man, stay with women. If you're a woman, stay with men. There's a reasons like that, and it's not to inhabit, or uh, it's not to downplay same-sex relationships. It's just understanding that every man needs a woman, every woman needs a man. We all need divine femininity and divine masculinity, or the lower half, the just femininity and masculinity. A lack thereof is a lack of self love because you have to have both to live a balanced lifestyle. You can't just go out your entire life lying to yourself, oh, I'm a macho man. Blah, 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 blah. Like, no, you look stupid, man. And you can't go throughout your whole life just being like, you know what I mean? Like, feminines have to have a uh, sort of masculinity. Masculines have to have a certain sort of femininity. There has to be a balance in between. understanding that and having multiple conversations with trans women and trying to get to the understanding of where I was and how I was doing it. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was looking to understand where my feelings and everything was coming from. So I wasn't really looking for lustful things either. It was more so just whatever came with it. You know what I mean? That's always kind of been me, honestly. That's why I could say confidently that I was never lustful. I was always just so in love with love that I had tried to understand where the hatred within me was coming from. And so dealing with uh, my little trans phase for a little bit, going on and off the dating apps because of just being done with it and then like getting that sudden urge and be like, okay, maybe there's something there for me now. And then it just being the same cycle over and over again. Um, Talked to a few trans women and I understood that they were really just confused. They didn't really. It's more so just looking for same-sex sex, not really a relationship, is what I really came to understand. It's not really about any of that. It's more so just trauma, honestly. Like trans women, probably some of the most traumatized and mistreated and abused people that I've been in contact with. So me being love, I showed them love, and I'm very glad I did that honestly because it really built character. And I had some amazing conversations, and I learned a lot. It was like my own little exploration into the depths of the deep dark. I can say that I'm never gonna be attracted to the masculinity, the genital area. Like that's so fucking disgusting to me. Oh my god. But being a man, you know what I mean. I feel like being a man, you're more so attracted to what's going on in the back area. You know what I mean. But there is just something so special about women that trans women would just not be able to replicate for me. So ultimately, I had to say goodbye. And it was only after the certain cycles and doing the certain things and all of that. I can pull the card and see if I can say that. And having like one, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I met up with like two. I met up with two, but I understood that I was attracted to the femininity and not really the masculinity of thereof. And understanding that I was confident that I didn't like men. I didn't like men that were uh, feminine. I liked feminine. I had just been under so much confusion, so much spell work, and so much other things that really got me confused at the time that I really didn't know where to put it all. Didn't know where to place it all, honestly. That I had finally put my foot down and I was like, no, this is not for me. It's not. Because it's not working out. No matter how hard I tried, it just never worked out. Because it never was supposed to. I was never meant for that path. Because understanding it too, there's a lot of hatred within trans women. A lot of hatred within trans women because they're so looked down upon. But I can confidently say I love trans women. I love women. I love men. I love trans. I love whatever you are, whatever you want to be. You know what I mean? Like whatever you want to be. But where there's a lack of God, there's a lack of me. So understanding that not many of these trans women really had a relationship with God, I could understand like, oh, father wounds. just like with same sex women having mother wounds. All of this confusion is based off of trauma. And that's not to say, I even had this conversation with a trans woman. That's not to say a trans woman can't be with a godly man. You just have to be what you're attracting. So you have to inhabit the traits of a godly woman. And you can if you have the femininity within you. You can. It's a possibility. Am I going to take that route? Absolutely not. But I'm sure there's a man that was chosen too, because there wouldn't be those types of people without a reason. So I feel like altogether we can come to a better understanding of the confusion because the same people that talk shit about all of that are the same people that are engaging in all of that. So we really got to understand. The same people who are trying to make laws and all this other stuff against it are the same people who indulge in those types of things. They're just so self-loathed absorbed that they have to find somewhere to place all that hatred at. And for me, I was never self-hatred absorbed. I always loved. And I always will continue to love, no matter who it is that I am charged to love. So I had to drop it all, thankfully. And I had to let the cycles just play themselves out and be done with it because I wasn't looking for a relationship with these trans women. I was looking for just experiencing what it was that was so attractive to me in the beginning and whatever came with that. But understanding that none of the situations or anything happened because it just wasn't meant to, I dropped it. Didn't have any kind of need for a continuation. So I dropped all of it. I stopped watching the P word and I stopped being on dating apps. And I can successfully say, as 4 years going on the 5 years of celibacy, that although I had my journey through my celibacy and I was relieving myself through my celibacy, I stopped. And I became the most powerful version of myself, stopping, stopping permanently, and understanding that these thoughts and these emotions aren't even mine. And the thing is, I saw these thoughts and these emotions return to their owners. I conquered lust. I was David, and I threw that stone at Goliath, and Goliath fell. And you can too. If you can get anything out of this message, I hope it's that you don't have to go looking for a relationship to to lust. You don't have to do any of that. You have to do the work within yourself to be able to love those parts of yourself that you find hard loving. Because do you think it was easy for me to love myself when I had been so confident in women for so long, and then all of a sudden I had this sudden attraction towards uh, femininity within trans women? No, I didn't like myself for that. I had to go through it though. I didn't like myself. I loved myself. This is where we really have to come to forgiveness of oneself and understanding of who one really is. Obviously, it's very vulnerable and there was a lot to say. But if you can take anything from it, think before you lust. Love before you lust. Because lust is going to lead you to damnation. Lust is going to lead you to unhappy homes. Lust is going to lead you to people, places, and things that don't serve you whatsoever. So if you don't have that love within yourself, to love your shadow, to love your dark moments, to love when you feel like you fell short, you have no business being in a relationship. You have no business hooking up. You have no business becoming somebody else's problem because you can't be your own solution. I'm gonna leave it at that. This is part one to the 7 parts of my experiences with sin and the understanding thereof of what it was for me in my life and how it contributed to who I am now. I'm celibate. I plan on being celibate until I am happily wedded and married. In the spiritual, of course, because this physical realm is false. And without the spiritual, the physical has no real value. So this has been yours truly, Carlos Xzyler Benson. Thank you all for if you watched this far. So much more coming. I'm working on it. Obviously, it takes time, and these videos, it's very fun. I really get to express myself in a way that God needs to for me to be heard because things like this matter. Knowing what it looks like before you get to that point is really going to help you avoid what I had to go through. And that's what I really am trying to educate people on in these types of videos is that we are so much better than this sin. We are so much better than these entities. We are so much better than these principalities. We do not fight a battle of flesh and blood. We fight a battle of spirits and principalities. No weapon formed against me prospered. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. We bind and rebuke in the blood of Jesus all lower level entities and demonic attachments and banish them to the fiery lake of fire where they belong. Because God's people don't need to deal with this any longer if they have the knowledge to not. Thank you again for watching this far. We thank you. The appreciation and the love and support always going to be very needed in a world lack of love where we're more so focused on lust. That's why this is the first sin out of the 7. Thank you again. And I love you. I love you a lot. Even in those times where you feel like you're unlovable, me, I love you. We love you. That's all, folks.